New Earnestly NBA show here, recording this on Tuesday afternoon around 1 p.m. on May 5th, 2026. I'm your host, Ernest EJ Christian, as we have now entered the second round of the NBA playoffs. And of course, we are joined here by my co-host here of the NBA show. He is, of course, analyst and author, NBA author, of course, my man, Greg Hrinya. Greg, how was your weekend, man?
It was good. Can't complain. Just watching sports and plugging away.
Yeah. we're off and running in the second round, man. Lots going on. Lots went on the last. We recorded the last podcast, I think, on Thursday.
Yeah.
And lots happened since then. So lots to dive into. We'll get to some the round two preview, some NBA awards updates. But before we get started on the round two, let's put a bow on the first round of the teams that lost in the first round. The remaining 6 teams that lost first round. We give them. See? Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you.
Hold on. Mike's a little issue. Sorry about that.
Oh, good.
My mic.
What's that?
So yeah, hold on. We pause real quick. Sorry about that. Technical issues on the microphone, the mic end. So we're gonna put a bow on round one. So this is the teams here that lost in the first round. First team here to touch on probably the biggest shocker the first, maybe the biggest shocker the first round, maybe second biggest shocker. I don't know. The Nuggets. What grade are you giving them?
Probably
tough,
a C.
isn't it?
Yeah, C minus. Only because going forward they still have Jokic, who's arguably the best player in the league still. But you can kind of see this coming from a mile away. Like months ago, we were talking about I started the season saying, "Oh, Nuggets, Knicks in the finals," but then they just had so many injuries that you just wondered if they were going to be able to ramp it up again to get to a place where they'd be competitive enough to win. Now, obviously, losing a series where Ant was compromised, they lose DiVincenzo, DeSumo, is banged up, that's pretty bad. And they don't really have a lot of wiggle room to change that going forward. You hear people saying oh, they got to get off of Aaron Gordon's salary. Well, who's taking that salary? He's 13 years in the league and he's always hurt. So
wow, already 13 years already?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I don't and they don't have picks that they can use to offload him. And you're stuck with Christian Brown, 5 years, $125 million. I think that was the deal he signed, and he's just an average role player at best. They're going to have to find a way to bring Peyton Watson back or risk losing him, and he was hurt for the playoffs.
Yeah. So
they have a lot of unknown with going forward, and considering you have the best player or arguably the best player in the world on your team, any year that you don't win, a year that he gets older, you have to be seen as a bust. So
absolutely,
it's not an F because you still have him going forward, but all the murkiness around him, it's a little concerning considering you don't anticipate OKC or San Antonio going anywhere for a while.
And there's a conversation right now that his window for a title may have closed. It's a conversation. I'm not saying it is, but it's a conversation now because the environment is going to get tougher because you already have a Minnesota problem because this is now the second time they beat me in the first round of the playoffs, or in the playoffs in general. Okay, San Antonio's better than you are now. OKC's better than you are now, and who knows between now and the fall who improves? The Lakers can improve, so can the Rockets. Teams that can improve. So the Denver right now is stuck. They're really good. They're a time contender because they have that core. And by the way, I will probably still keep that core anyway. I will see this. Unless you're going to have to be honest, there's no move to make for Nuggets. There's no move you can make, really. It's going to improve this team.
They don't have a package for Giannis personally. So
yeah, and you're going to have to give up a lot of parts to make that happen. As we said this theme on the show a lot, that to get Giannis, you got to give up a lot. And I don't think it's worth it. I gave him a D+ for that same. I'm writing the same pocket as you, C- D+, because again, there's no excuse. All injuries aside, yeah, cool. Their best player didn't play last two games of the series.
Yeah, you're right.
That's it. That's all you need to know. DiVincenzo missed half the series. You still lost. You had Jokic available still. Jamal Murray still available. Your core two was still available, and you lost the series. No excuses. And I'm actually kind of surprised and even disappointed that I'm not hearing enough Jokic criticism. Not to say he didn't play well in the series, but But again, this is how it works in the NBA. It doesn't matter how good you are. It happens to LeBron. It happens to all the stars. When they lose, it's on them. He can average triple double. It's LeBron's fault no matter what because you are the guy.
To be honest,
I'm not. Huh?
Oh, sorry to cut you off. I don't think he was the same after the injury, personally.
True, I agree. But again, when you are the best player in basketball, still, as you said, he's still in the conversation with that. It comes with the territory. I'm not seeing enough criticism towards Jokic. I'm not even saying it's fair. I'm just saying I'm not hearing enough of that. So, D plus for me.
Yeah, because when Giannis's teams lose, everyone says, "Oh, he's got to go out and demand a trade." And when Jokic's teams lose, it's like, oh well. It's just funny the way that they're both treated.
Yeah, it's unfair, really. To be honest with you, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying we should criticize Jokic unfairly, but he should be fairly criticized too. So, here's what it is. All right, next team here: Houston Rockets out of first round 6 against the Lakers. Get them.
A C. I give them a little bit of leeway just because they have a lot of assets going forward that they can still move. So, it's not like they're stuck. Like, Denver is kind of stuck, but they have the best player in the world, arguably. Houston isn't stuck by any means. Like, they still have, Fred VanVleet comes back. They want to keep him. They want to have a true point guard. That's fine. If they want to use that in a trade, they've got, their picks. They've got other teams' picks. Like, they've got the Nets picks next year, so that they can move. So there's some flexibility, or they can move off of Durant and try and go younger and get some assets back that way. So
options, yep.
Yeah, they have options in terms of where they go. They clearly, weren't healthy for that series, but obviously you lose to a team that's missing half of Austin Reeves and Luka. Like, It's not great, but it's not like their window is closed. Like, you could look at Denver and say, like, their window could be closing. Like, I feel like there are moves that Houston could make that could keep their window open.
Yeah. By the way, my microphone is right here. Right here. It's on my boom stand.
Oh, okay.
So all this hubbaloo about my microphone wire, I couldn't find it. It's sitting right here, right over my head.
Well, at least you found it.
Yeah. So last episode was the keys, right? Remember the keys?
Yeah.
Make it make sense. They get a D from me, bro. And granted, a lot of injuries, yes, aside. But this season felt disappointing from the word go. It never felt like Houston ever got a grasp on a year. Even before Steven Adams got hurt. It never felt like they got a grasp on a year. I don't know what it was. I'm not saying it's anybody's fault. It's just, you got KD and then you that young core, and you're supposed to be in a conversation with the top 2-3 teams in the West, and you're not really there. And quite frankly, Minnesota's probably better than you also, too, on top of that. And then the Lakers beat you like this without Luka and Reeves most of the series. Come on, bro. I know KD missed most of the series, but even when KD played, he didn't play well. So, the Rockets never felt like they ever got a grasp on this season. Having said that, the rumor is now they're going to bring the core back, and they should. They should, because I think adding VanVleet back to the mix, as you mentioned, it should at least give you a boost. So if I'm assessing this team again next year, I'm going to look at them the way I looked at them before the year started, regardless of what played out this year. They'll be fully healthy. You get your guy VanVleet back on top of that. I'm going to put this team in the top 3-4 conversations next year too, also in the West, just because of that. But for the time being, it is absolute disappointment because, it was a wash at best with Lakers. On paper, you're still better than the Lakers, even without KD. There's enough talent in that roster because the best player on that team was LeBron, who's at 41 years old. And I know he's playing great, but he's still 41 years old. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. Well, when they didn't make any move at the trade deadline, that pretty much solidified that their ceiling was capped as far as how they could go. Because they could have moved some of those picks. They could have moved VanVleet. They could have gone out and tried to acquire a difference maker at the deadline, and they didn't. So when they stood pat, it almost seemed like they were just resigned to the fact that this season is just going to go the way that it goes. So, right. Which, might not even be the wrong decision. They might have, no matter who they picked up, I don't see them beating OKC or San Antonio. So, maybe the better part of valor was just to sort of eat it for this year and move forward next year. And you've got a lot of flexibility this summer.
Maybe you're right. All right, next team here, the Boston Celtics, probably the biggest shocker in the first round. I guess based on now, if he had said this for the series, the season started and boxed out in the first round, you probably wouldn't have been surprised. But given how everything played out this year, number 2 seed, you get Tatum back in the year, things are rolling for the Celtics. They're up 3-1, and then what the hell was that shit?
Yeah, I mean, I give him a B minus. I give him a pretty high grade because they got Tatum back. He was pretty healthy, and he clearly wasn't healthy towards the end of the series. And from what you read and hear, his one leg was only 85% of the strength of the other leg. So, I mean, like the fact that they were able to get through the season without having him suffer another catastrophic injury is a plus. And going into the year, like they probably didn't expect to have him at all, and they found a lot of pieces on their roster, and maybe in a sense they could move some of those pieces to get another player that could go alongside Brown, Tatum. I mean, you're going to hear a lot of rumors about Brown being in the mix for another superstar. Like I don't really see them doing that, but I think that they played above their weight all season, and it just caught up to them. Embiid became healthy and Tatum became not healthy, and so the roles kind of reversed mid-series. So, yeah, it was a disappointment given what we thought of 2 weeks ago. But when you step back and look at all the guys they lost going into the season, who were all veteran championship caliber players, and then what they had, and then losing Tatum, like it's not overly surprising when you step back and think about it, even though I thought that they would have dispatched Philly
Right.
quickly, but they just, ran out of gas, I guess you could say. And I think it's a big plus that Tatum didn't suffer any more injuries and that he can come into training camp next year fully ready to go.
Disappointment aside, though, I give him a beat for that reason because, look, 3-1, lead, you blow the lead, of course. But let's be clear about this also, too. If Tatum plays Game 7, I'm not trying to take anything from Philadelphia because that's a great comeback. You got to give him credit for what they do there. But with Jason Tatum in the lineup in Game 7, that's probably a different result because Jason Tatum is still good for 20 minimum 20 points there in that game, even on one leg.
Yeah, but the game that you would hammer them on is Game 2 because you're losing a game that Embiid's not even playing.
Right,
That's
true.
At least in 5, 6, and 7, he played really well. Like he looked like the old Joel Embiid. So that wasn't a 7 seed that they were playing against. They were playing against
high powers.
A more formidable opponent. So maybe it's a 2 seed versus a 4 seed instead of a 2 seed versus a 7 seed. So
what did we say last week on the show after we did our first reaction to after Game 2 loss? We weren't surprised because they do this every year.
Because they are just totally dependent on the 3, and that's just a style that they're going to play. And look, they've won a title playing that style, so it's hard to say they should abandon it completely. But when you have good players on your team and you're just going to chuck 53s, if you're going to shoot below 30%, like you're just, you're bringing luck into the equation. You're bringing shooting variance in the equation, and you're allowing teams that probably aren't as good to have a chance against you, because if you miss a lot of those shots and then subsequently don't get the rebounds, like what happened is what can happen. But I guess I would look at it and say, if they had Jason Tatum for the entire year, then it would be an F, but the fact that he came back early, he was playing like 38, 40 minutes a game, which he probably shouldn't have been doing. So I think they pushed him beyond what they should have, and they still wound up escaping any sort of major injury to him. So, I mean, I still look at that as a good thing, and I think that they're situated perfectly fine going into next year. So.
Right. I gave him a B for that same reason, just because. But like I said, I think that do you blow up the team now? No, you got to write this out.
And also, I think you have to give Philly credit, give Embiid credit for how he came back and played. Like I didn't think that he had it in him. I didn't think that Paul George had it in him.
Absolutely.
And this whole thing is an argument for why there are too many games, because Paul George missed 25 games, looked phenomenal in the first round. Embiid played like 37, 38 games during the season, looked great when he came back. So, I mean, like, it's a war of attrition, and they had 2 guys that were able to basically, miss, half the season or close to half the season. There's something to be said for being fresh going into the playoffs. So,
yeah. All right, next team here, the Raptors, who are out in 7 against the Cavs.
I'll give them a C, and the reason I'm a little lower on them is because of how expensive their roster is. So, I mean, yeah, they have most of their picks. They have, obviously Scotty Barnes. You can make the argument as a star, superstar. CMB was a good pick, but they're just a very expensive roster with some really bad contracts on it. So, like, I don't know how they're really changing what they are without giving up all their assets. So, without making like a Desmond Bain type trade, I don't really know how they go anywhere because they're stuck with Pirtle's contract, which is arguably the worst in the league. I mean, again, he can barely play, and you're paying him $30 million a year for 3 more years. Barrett's good. You're fine with that. Quickly is always hurt. And Brandon Ingram, he's a guy that has never really been a guy you can count on. So you could look at it and say, oh, they lost the series in 7 and Quickly wasn't there and Ingram wasn't there. But Quickly wasn't there for a good chunk of the season, and Brandon Ingram is always hurt. So I mean, I don't know how they build upon what they are, considering Scotty Barnes needs he needs a Kevin Durant around him or somebody that can shoot or someone you can he's not a typical go get me a bucket guy. He can score, but he's not a 40% 3-point shooter. So I don't know where they're sort of adjusting their roster to build upon what was a very good year.
That's a tough grade there for you. I had to give them B+ though, because again, they did more than I thought they'd do this year. I thought they'd be a decent team this year. I thought they'd be a playing team though. The fact they were a 5 seed and took the Cavs to the brink of elimination says a lot. Now look, they could have won that game 7, and obviously there's some opportunities there to take control of that series. But all in all, and look, I agree. Expensive roster. Except, here's the thing. They're not a big market team. They don't attract big name players. So they have to go for broke and sign these guys to big overinflated deals because Brandon Ingram is more valuable to them than it is to another team like the Lakers, for example. You know what I mean? So that's why I don't hold that as much as a negative to them, because at least Toronto's trying to win. And while they can't get the Giannis's and the Jokic's and all these big name players, they feel the need that for them to compete, they have to spend on mid-level players and probably spend more money than they probably would on these players, which I get it. It is a pricey roster. I do think those contracts are movable. Those players can go somewhere else and probably play quality basketball somewhere else as well too. There's not enough good players in the league and too many teams that need players. So I would say Toronto's a team that if they want to, they got a lot of wings now. They got Barnes, you got Ingram, you got obviously RJ Barrett, guys that you can move on, and guys who are productive and still pretty young. So they do have some assets to work with here too. And hell, if they want to get into the Giannis sweepstakes, they have assets that Milwaukee might actually find attractive. So they're in a good spot right now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, again, they're just expensive. And to your point, if you want to overspend because you don't want to be one of the bottom tier teams, if you want to spend on mid-tier players, you're going to get mid-tier results. I mean, I would argue that I'd rather see a team do what Washington or Utah did and try and get a star that way than to just be an average team for 5
You mean through the draft, you mean?
Yeah.
But that's the problem. They're not bad enough, though.
Well, no, bad enough. I'm saying that instead of giving Barrett and Quickly and Pirtle, I mean, the Pirtle contract is immovable.
Right, of course, yeah.
You can't move that for anything. That arguably is the worst contract in the league, and I would say probably is the worst.
We should do that. That's what we should have done. Maybe next episode, somebody should do another draft. The worst contract in the league.
Because at least Embiid and Paul George, the numbers are bad, but they still give you something. Pirtle can't play, and he's getting $30 million a year, and you're stuck with him for years. So I mean, that's really bad. But they're a tax team right now, and being in the tax and not having a runway to a championship or to a finals. You look at the Knicks, it's okay, they've got a runway. You look at the Cavs, you could say, okay, they're underachieving, but I can see where they're going with this. Toronto, I just see as sort of a middling team that would have to give up a lot, most of their future draft picks. They'd have to make that Desmond Bain type deal to get the player to bring them over the top. And I don't know who that player is. I mean, again, if they want to go after Durant, okay, I can be sold on that. But I don't know that they have what Toronto, what Milwaukee would want for Giannis. personally, unless you're rerouting assets to Portland and getting some of those picks back.
Here's what I'll say in their defense, though. If the economics of the NBA today, which is makes it hard for all teams to spend into the tax, heavily into the tax, into the apron, and teams like on top, like the Bostons and New York, start to fizzle out those contracts a little bit. Toronto, that means the roster will be a little more vulnerable than they were prior to doing so, which makes Toronto a team that, with this roster, can flirt with going to the conference finals. You know what I mean? If Boston gets a little worse roster-wise because they didn't want to pay X amount of dollars on the taxes, or New York, for example, or even Cleveland, for example, that opens the door for a team like Toronto, who's in position right now with young players, to maybe flirt with a conference championship, maybe even go to the finals.
But I think the East is going to be stronger next year than it is right now.
Well, Indiana's the big wild card, yes.
Indiana, and also like a team like Washington, like they're not going to be trying to lose every single night.
Right.
Even a team like the Nets is not going to be trying to lose every single night. So I mean, like those gimme games that were on their schedule that helped them get to the place that they were, like those teams are not like Indiana. If they get a top 4 pick, they're right there with Boston and whomever else you want.
So you're saying there'll be a course correction next year, most likely.
I'm saying even if Toronto gets better next year, they could wind up in the same spot or worse.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because Indiana,
just based on the rest of the conference also being better.
Right. No, it's a great point. That's why I think next year is very fascinating, because a lot of these teams, you talk about windows, and Detroit having a window to do this, and look, they're still alive, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's a great point there. All right, the Hawks, who lost in 6 to the Knicks, up 2-1, and then decided the series is over in 3. Because then next 3 games they get blown out.
Yeah, I mean, I give them an A-. I would have given them an A+ had they not played as pitifully as they played in Game 6. Because all year, I think, obviously we had our doubts about the Knicks, but they wind up playing a team that I think before the season most people would have said would be the favorite to go to the finals in the Knicks, and they still might be. And Atlanta, for 3/4 of the season, was one of the 5, 6, 7 best teams in the league. So they got off to a terrible start. But they course corrected, and they've got plenty of flexibility, and they've got that New Orleans pick. So I mean, they can either, if that pick doesn't jump, they can use that pick on what will be a glut of guards from 5 to 9. So they can add a guard, move Nickeil Alexander-Walker to the 2, and now you're adding some shooting, you're adding some scoring. Then Nickeil Alexander-Walker naturally moves over to what he should have been doing. Then you still have Jalen Johnson, and so I mean, like they've got a very bright future, I would say, in addition to most of their picks. Obviously, their own pick is going to San Antonio, but it's not a lottery pick. So, I mean, after that pick, I think they're pretty well set with assets. So, I mean, they could make some moves to become a lot better quickly. And that New Orleans pick is right at the center of it. Whether they choose to use it, whether they choose to say, we'll float that to, let's say that winds up as a 2nd pick in the draft, and they go to Milwaukee and say, we'll give you that for Giannis and some other picks. Like, now that's a deal that moves me, whereas, what Toronto would be offering, like that deal doesn't move me nearly as much. Now, granted, the lottery odds are changing and all that stuff. So maybe that brings other teams' 1st-round picks into play more so than it would have. I'm also not convinced Giannis is leaving, by the way, but I mean, I'm just using him as an example of take player X who could be on the move. Atlanta will be in the market for those types of players, depending on how the playoffs continue. Like, let's say if Cleveland loses in 5 to Detroit, does Cleveland then say, we'll pivot off of Donovan Mitchell? And then does Atlanta say, we'll take Donovan Mitchell because what we need is a shooter, a scorer, that sort of thing. So I feel like they can be flexible. And even with what they had, they were very competitive for 3/4 of the season. And they put up a fight for 5 games against the Knicks, and the 6th game was historic. But it is what it is. That's why I didn't give them an A+.
They went to Cancun. They went in Cancun, right, bro? They booked the Cancun after Game 5. Seriously, and I give them an A though, because it's one of the best in-season tournaments I think I've seen in this league in quite a while. You lose your best player, like trade him. You by the way, I think you guys at the time were like under 500, and then not only do you make the playoffs, you actually or a 6 seed and could have gotten higher. You were like only a couple games away from the 4 seed at one point. It's a great year for the Hawks. Jalen Johnson is a hit. Obviously, you got some good talent there. Kaminga's there. A lot to work with going forward for the Hawks. Should be proud of themselves. So I gave it an A. Definitely great year. And finally, last team here, the Orlando Magic, who lost in 7 to Detroit.
I give them a D because I think that Vegas had them as the 4th or 5th team in the East.
We did too, I think. I know I did.
Going into the year, and basically they had to play their best game of the year just to even get into the playoffs. And when you come off of giving away 4 first-round picks for Desmond Bane, I think the expectations had to be a lot higher, and I think they were mediocre from jump. And the way that they went out, look, I get that Franz Wagner got hurt, but like he, to me, is also, you could put him right next to Jakob Poeltl. Not because he's not a good player, but I don't want to steal this, but from Bill Simmons' podcast, Franz questionable Wagner. It's like Anthony Street Clothes Davis. He just never plays. Franz Wagner is always hurt. So, you're paying, 5 years, $250, $260 million to a guy who's a good role player. He's maybe a borderline all-star when he's healthy, but just never healthy. And so, yes, he was good early in the series. He was good guarding Cade, but like, given his age and his contract, and I can't, trust him as far as I can throw him, basically. So, you've got a lot of question marks on that roster that's, about to get expensive. Anthony Black is doing a new contract. Jalen Suggs, another guy who's not worth nearly what he makes, and is also always hurt. Mm-hmm. So, you've got a situation where Suggs and Wagner are always hurt. The coach was a disaster. I didn't like any offense that he ran. I think that made a big deal. It was basically give the ball to Paolo and pray. And Banchero played great. So, it's not an F because at least they have him on the roster. But I could also see him being the next one of those stars who gets frustrated really fast and demands a trade. So, I think that there's a lot of unknown with Orlando, starting with the coach, and then how they build out that roster is they don't have a lot of picks to move because they traded them all for Desmond Bane. And Bane was good for the most part for most of the year, but you traded all those picks for a guy that you thought was going to put you over the top, and basically you still needed to win, an 8-9 play-in game just to get the 8 seed. Like that's a that's a failure of a season from pretty much every avenue.
It's a failure too, because people say, "Oh, we pushed Detroit to 7 games." No. You blew a 3-1 lead in that series. Stop all that noise. Yeah. You were just waiting for the word go this year. You guys were supposed to be a top 4 or 5 seed in the East this year. So no. By the way, after the game, you texted me immediately saying, overrun at 10 a.m., Jamal Mosey gets fired. And you said under, and you got the under by 12 minutes. Yeah. I got the alert from Bleacher Report at 9:48 yesterday. And I texted you immediately saying, dude, 12 minutes, bro.
Yeah, it's a couple things. One, I don't think he did a good job at all. And this is going back to his first year. When he was hired during the pandemic year, I remember they were playing the Nets, who at the time were playing without Durant, and they didn't have Harden yet at the time. And it was just Kyrie and nobody else, basically. And Kyrie scored like 61 points against them. And his reaction in the post-game presser was just, yeah, you got to tip your cap to Kyrie. He was hot. And it's like, there's no one else on that roster. As a coach, you need to get the ball out of his hands and make someone else beat you. It's just time and time again, I feel like he didn't have answers when there were problems that I feel like should have been solvable. Case in point, they were up by 24 points early in the third quarter of Game 6 to close that series without Franz Wagner. So, the injury excuse isn't an excuse because they got up 24 and they scored 19 points in the entire second half, 8 points in the fourth quarter. As a coach, you have to be able to draw up some kind of offense and run some sort of set to get your team a layup, or an easy basket, given that you've got Bane and Paolo still on the roster, and Suggs, who you're paying all this money to. So, you've got to be able to score more than 8 points in a fourth quarter. Like,
right.
To me, that's way worse than what Atlanta did. Atlanta, they just lost the rope in a series that they were destined to lose. Orlando had that series won, basically. Mm-hmm. and they had no answers when Detroit started
And,
putting.
and even the games they lost to Detroit in that series, they weren't interested to win those games too. Other than I think game 2 and probably
Game 7.
game 7, of course. Yeah,
They had
like
they had a chance to win 5. They should have won 6, but they were
yep.
in position in Game 5.
I don't hear shit. I don't hear nothing about this excuses at all. At this point, I was close to putting the F. The only reason I didn't go F is because you made the playoffs, you pushed them 1 seed to 7 games. Other than that, it would have been an F without question.
Yeah, I mean,
fucking failure.
For me, the only reason it's not a complete failure is because they have Banchero on their roster. So at least they know they have one really good player who also has his limitations, but at least you have a player that you think that you believe in.
I'm not gonna lie to you, brother. I'm not gonna call him LaMelo Ball bad, but there's some LaMelo Ball there.
Yeah, no, it's not perfect by any stretch, but I mean, he did have a game of 45, a game of 38 in games they lost, ironically. So I mean, like, as much as I might,
as I said, LaMelo Ball.
As much as I might, yeah, but LaMelo can't even give you that. LaMelo is a high volume scorer where like he's going to shoot 7 for 20. At least Paolo gave you above average efficiency in those games. And again, I'm no great fan of his, but I feel like even if they chose to move off of him, they could move off of him and get a lot for him.
Yeah, I think so. If you're Orlando, if you believe that he's not going to shoot the winning going forward, big picture. I mean,
whereas Charlotte cannot get off of LaMelo Ball. I mean, what you saw in the play-in games was horrific.
Well, I'm not suggesting he's LaMelo Ball yet. I see good things in Paulo enough to say, okay, but this X, Y, and Z. But LaMelo, I'm sold on LaMelo. Is this who he is?
Yeah,
he's not a guy that contributes to winning. I think Paulo still can, given the right situation, right coaching, whatnot. But I gave him D. So, all right, let's get to the preview of round 2. Now, 2 games already started. There's 2 series already started their thing. Let's go to the East first here. Okay, 1-4 Pistons Cavaliers. Starts tonight. Who you got this one?
I mean, I could see anything happening in this series. I'm going to take the Cavs in 7, but I mean, if you told me that the Pistons won in 5, I wouldn't be shocked. If you told me the Cavs won in 5, I wouldn't be shocked. I'll take the Cavs in 7 just because I feel like they have more talent, and I feel like Detroit showed a lot of weakness against what
sure did.
Just went at length of saying, oh, look at how bad Orlando is. Well, they took Detroit to 7, so I feel like that's got to mean something. The opportunity is right there for Cleveland. I mean, it's like they're not going to get a better draw than Toronto, who is probably ahead of where they should have been as far as like in their journey. Mm-hmm. And then also Detroit, who's got a lot of shooting limitations, outside of Cade and Duncan Robinson. Like you mentioned, like, oh, they need Duncan to be good against Orlando. It's like they might not need him for Orlando, but they're going to need him to be really good against Cleveland and any other team they face, because outside of that, they really don't have a lot of outside shooting.
2 teams right now I'm a little soft on. I don't trust Cavaliers. Bigger picture. Detroit, rough series against Orlando. They got through it, obviously. Maybe that was also a wake-up call for Detroit. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's a wake-up call. Some teams need these. Some teams coast through the year. They're picking them close in the first round against the 8th seed, and then they get pushed back. So I remember I go back to Boston, the 08 Celtics won a title. People forget. First round, Hawks won the 7.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up that exact.
There you go. So, yeah. I mean, we have examples of like, okay, we're cool now. Let's shake it off. Boom, and then rest of the way they cakewalk. So, I'm taking Detroit in 7 because I trust them more.
Okay. I mean, look, Detroit could still wind up in the finals. I mean, like, just because they were terrible against Orlando, right. Like everything in the playoffs and you see this time and time again, it's all about matchups. So, like, the matchup for the Knicks is much better against Philly than it would be against Detroit, let's say. So, I mean, like, so that all plays into it. I mean, like, I think Detroit's a harder matchup for the Knicks than the Sixers are. So, I mean, I'm not convinced that just because Detroit had a bad first series doesn't mean that the odds can't play in their favor because they out-tough Cleveland and then go
correct
the next round and out-tough the Knicks, So yeah, I mean, like, I'm not ruling that out as bad as they were, but I'm just looking at it and saying it's got to be now for Cleveland because Detroit's got some limitations unless they're just outworking you. So I'm hoping from Cleveland's standpoint that they don't get outworked.
The Cavs are good enough right now in this position to go to the finals.
Yeah.
I need to see Donovan Mitchell take next step in this series.
Yeah,
He had a very mid first round by his standards.
Yeah, he was bad.
So, all right, next series, which already started. Knicks Sixers. Knicks won big last night by 39 points. What was your prediction before the series started, and has it changed now due to last night's results?
It's the same. It was a Knicks and 6.
And it's still Knicks and 6?
Yeah, it's still, because I think that the quick turnaround for Philly, you have an emotional win over Boston, and then you've got to turn around 2 days later and play, while the Knicks had 4 days off. That letdown didn't surprise me at all. I would have been shocked if the Knicks had lost yesterday. I didn't necessarily see them winning
by 39,
by near 40. But look, right now the Knicks are the favorite. You'd have to imagine, to go to the finals. That doesn't mean that they will. It doesn't mean that they're not going to revert back.
I love your hedging. You're such a gambler. Look at you.
I'm not. They
will, but they're favorites.
No, but look, Brunson.
You're right.
Any number of things can happen. But I'm just saying, if you're betting in Vegas today, I'd imagine that and again, I don't know what the lines are, but I'd imagine that the Knicks have the best odds to go. To
God, yeah. I haven't even checked yet. I almost guarantee that.
Out of the 4 teams left, so
no, Knicks in 7. Mostly because of the fact that now last night's win might change some things. We'll see. But again, the things you mentioned, quick turnaround, this and that. For game 1, you play the most vulnerable to get beat like this. Philip turns around game 2, probably is very likely. But also, who's likely to get hurt between the star players? It's Embiid. Yeah. Embiid has to be available for all 7 games, and how many games they play in the series, and to also be efficient and effective. New York has a lot more. Much like I don't trust the Knicks, bigger picture. I know that is like still a 4-game stretch now. They won by like double digits each game. They are still the better team, I guess, because they have the healthier players. Does that make any sense to you? They're more dependable.
I did learn something from yesterday's game that I thought concerned me greatly from Philadelphia's standpoint, is that I don't think they have a way to defend the Knicks. Not saying that they can't score easily on them in the games going forward, but I don't know that Embiid is a good matchup in this series, for Philadelphia, because if they're going to play drop in every pick and roll coverage at the top of the arc, like Brunson will just take those elbow jumpers all day long. Those are layups to him. Mm-hmm. And then when they tried to bring help from the corner, he just then kicked it out to a wide open Anunoby who was shooting a 3. So, I feel like Embiid's lack of mobility is going to give them a lot of trouble guarding the Knicks offense. And also kudos to Mike Brown for the way that he's using Towns in sort of a way that it's sort of how the Warriors would use Draymond Green, which isn't a surprise because Mike Brown was an assistant with Steve Kerr at one time. Using Cat at the top of the key to initiate offense. He can get his own shot, but he's also looking to pass, and his assist numbers are through the roof. So, they're using him in a way that's creative more so than what we saw in years past, where, I don't think Tom Thibodeau is that creative in using him. So I give Mike Brown credit for that. And I don't know that Philly has a lot of good answers guarding the Knicks with Embiid on the floor, just given his lack of foot speed and how he looked guarding the pick and roll.
By the way, you asked a question about the betting odds. So the Knicks are the favorites, the favorite in the East to win to win the finals. The Knicks plus 800. They're the best odds of each conference. The next each conference team is plus 1750 at Detroit. For Detroit, okay.
That's pretty.
So it's a big gap now.
Yeah.
To win the finals now, of course. It's just the teams in order. So it's Thunder, Spurs, Knicks, Pistons, Cavs, T-Wolves, Lakers, and Sixers.
And what are the Thunder, like plus 150 or plus 200?
Minus 155.
Oh, minus 150. Oh, wow. So they are huge favorites. Yeah.
Spurs plus 425, Knicks plus 800, Pistons plus 1750, Cavs plus 2250, T-Wolves plus 3,000, even though they won game 1. We'll get to in a second. Lakers plus 3,000 as well, too, also, and the Sixers plus 6,000. I wouldn't mind betting. Look, for value, bet the Wolves plus 3,000. Why not?
Yeah. No, you can't argue with those odds.
They're frisky as fuck. They're frisky as hell.
And they've played OKC tough. So
yep, that's what I'm saying. Yep. Mm-hmm. All right, let's get to the next conference. Thunder Lakers starts tonight. What you got in this one?
I have the Thunder in 4.
I do too.
Yeah.
Now, if Luke gets back for a game or two, maybe steal one.
Yeah, but I think by the time that he comes back, if you're down 3-0, do you even bother bringing him back and risking doing more damage to his
That's true.
hamstring when the series is over at that point? So I mean, I just don't know that they're even going to be in a position to bring him back. That it might not even make sense because from what I read and heard, the treatment that he got in Europe did not substantially expedite.
That sucks.
It didn't expedite his healing process. So if he's coming back, he's not coming back at 100%. And if he's going to come back hobbled, like I don't know if that's helping the team at that point, and you're just risking him going forward. So I just don't see it. Even with no Jalen Williams for OKC, I just think that they're too deep, they're too talented. I think they're going to give the Lakers are going to have trouble scoring. I think.
Put it this way: with Luka, Thunder in 5.
Yeah.
So put it that way. Even Luka helps. You might get one game. That's it. I'm with you. Thunder in sleep. I was telling Lakers fans too. Also got all happy after the Rockets series. Like, thanks, congratulations. Now you're gonna get annihilated by OKC.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know how the Lakers score 90 points in a game where Doncic isn't playing because they're going to put Mason Wallace on Austin Reeves, and they're going to have multiple guys chasing LeBron around, and he's just going to run out of gas. So
right, totally agree with you. All right, finally, last the series here. T-Wolves and Spurs. Minnesota already won first game last night, and a bit of a shocker, I guess I'm going to call it. Especially with Anthony Edwards' injury. Great fourth quarter by Edwards, though. Gutted it out. Good job by him. What was your prediction before the series started? Has it changed since this result?
It was the same thing with the Knicks. I had Spurs in 6, so I mean it doesn't materially change what I thought would happen. I mean, I think as we were talking about off the air, like Wemby can't be going 0 for 8 from 3. Like he's not a good enough 3-point shooter to be taking that many shots in what wound up being a possession game. And to be honest, I would take that shot any day of the week. Champagny is one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. He got a wide open look. I was shocked it didn't go in.
Were they out of timeouts?
No, I think they still had timeouts. But I mean, the look that they got, like
understandable, but it was too chaotic though. Right, I agree, but it was too chaotic though. Too chaotic.
Yeah, I think that if you were to ask Mitch Johnson, he'd be happy with the look. I'm sure if you were to ask Greg Popovich, he would have been happy with the look. I mean, it's. Like, yes, in theory, draw a timeout, try and get Wemby going towards the basket or something like that. But the reality is they had a shot to win a game that they really didn't deserve to win. Didn't play that well. I mean, some guys played well. Harper played pretty well.
So I had Spurs in 5 before the series started. After last night, I have Spurs in 6 now. Okay. This will, but after nothing, the Timberwolves are now building a lot of like playoff like legs here and a lot of experience here. Recent experience. They've been to conference finals 2 years in a row. People forget that. This team is very experienced.
And that's why I had them in 6. Right. 6, just because I feel like Minnesota's been formidable for years.
They're frisky. They're frisky as hell.
Yeah.
So, and I was tempted to put them in 7 at Spurs in 7 because those players they play. Those boys can play. Yeah. So, but I'm gonna go Spurs in 6 because of Wemby. I think Wemby, even though he 8 misses last one from 3, 12 blocks though, bro. 12 blocks. Amazing. So Spurs in 6.
Just got to stay healthy, though.
Yes, absolutely. All right, we got here a little bit of update on the NBA awards. I know we covered Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year. Well, Defensive Player of the Year was Wembanyama. Rookie of the Year, Flag. We got Six Man of the Year in Kellen Johnson. We got Clutch Player of the Year in SGA. No problem with that?
Yeah, no problem with that. That wasn't one that you and I voted on.
No. Just covering it. Just covering what they have here. Most Improved Player, you got Nikhil Alexander Walker from the Timberwolves.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all the awards so far have been. I can't speak for you, but the guys that I had winning them. So
yeah,
had Kelvin Johnson, had Alexander Walker.
Second year, Brad Stevens.
Yeah, and I assume that Missoula is going to win Coach of the Year.
No, Coach of the Year was won by the JB Bickerstaff.
Was that official, or was that the coaches voting on the coach?
It might be the Coach Association, though. Yes.
Yeah.
You have these don't matter. Hustle Award, Diabate and Charlotte. Team of the Year, DeAndre Jordan. That's all stuff doesn't matter. Derek White sponsorship. Yeah, but that's nothing. That matter, bro. All right, still got MVP coming up. Still got Coach of the Year, official Coach of the Year, and Social Justice Champion, whatever. Okay, no, that's where we're at with the awards now. So far, but to me, everything's on chalk. The awards seems very chalk to me. I think SGA will win MVP still. I think Coach of the Year is probably the best race of the bunch left. So
yeah.
All right, Greg, anything you want to plug me out here? Because I know you got to run.
Nope. Just my appearance here. So keep tuning in.
No, Twitter's still down, huh? X still down?
Still down. I'm probably gonna have to make a new one at some point.
Man. So follow him on Instagram at Greg_Hrinya, Hrinya. I'm on X at Eastern7, NBA show, of course. Talk to you guys later. God bless y'all and see ya.
Go Heat, bitch.